What's going on, everybody? Tanner Lee here, the Tan and J-Man Show, and I am thrilled and excited to have a recurring guest on, a good friend of the podcast, ex-PGA Tour player, Chris Smith. Chris, how we doing? Thanks for taking some time out of your evening and joining me just to shoot the breeze a little bit.
Yeah, it's nice to be here. You guys must be desperate on guests if you're pulling an old man like me into your arsenal. But it is always fun to talk to you. You and your dad are the two most knowledgeable people I know about sports. So
I don't know about that, but
I've learned my lesson a long time ago. I don't challenge either one of you on any sports trivia or knowledge. So I just follow along.
well, I appreciate the compliments. Not sure how factual or truthful that is, but I appreciate
You do
it.
know. You do know.
But yeah, it's been a little while since we've had you on the show, and I got to talk to you. I know you took some time out of your schedule. It was probably about 2 years ago now, and we kind of talked about your journey growing up in Rochester and journey getting through Ohio State and then into the tour. But today, I thought we'd just kind of shoot the breeze on various topics. But since it's the holiday season and we got Christmas coming up here in a handful of days, what's Christmas like in the Smith household? Any traditions you have to do on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day?
Well, yes, we started when Beth and I got married, we got married in 91, and we decided in 1991 that the house was going to be shut down on Christmas Day and it was only going to be family. And we've held true to that. So we get everything out of the way. And now we lost Beth almost 15 years ago. So some of the traditions have carried on, and Elle is all about it. So, this whole thing, Christmas morning, we get up and we do our presents, and we might drink a mimosa or two while we're doing our presents. And we hang in our pajamas all day long and watch some sports on TV. And other than that, we don't let anybody come over and we don't leave. So Christmas Day is great. Now, the days leading up to it, we're hosting the kids and mom and dad on Christmas Eve for dinner. And we've got her family. We go to that dinner, and we've already had a Smith family dinner. The days leading up to it, I am a victim of all the typical holiday things. But once Christmas hits, and then after Christmas, it's geared towards Ohio State football and whatever day they're playing. And unfortunately, this year they're playing before January the 1st. But then I'll spend a couple days getting fired up for that game, and then try to, for the first time in my life, probably root for Alabama on January the 1st and see if there's some good football, because it is definitely still football season.
Yeah, it's college basketball season for me, but it helps when my team's ranked number one in the country. But on that note, it has really helped this year that Purdue's played the tough non-conference schedule they have, because years past, even while we're in late December, I'm like, I can't get into college basketball till Big Ten season starts. But it's helped this year that Purdue's had a gauntlet schedule and luckily worked their way through it pretty well.
Yeah, they fared pretty good. Now, I grew up a big IU fan, so you and I have these talks. It's hard for me to root for Purdue, but when it comes time for March Madness, I'm all in on the Big Ten, except for that team up north. Everybody else, last year, I was devastated with the outcome of Purdue. And so, the coaching staff plays a lot of golf here at Rock Hollow. So we see them, and I was into it, and I was like, okay, this is the year, Final Four. Who knows what's going to happen? And it ended way too fast for you last year.
I'm hoping it replicates what happened to Virginia in 18/19. In 18, they get bounced by UMBC first round, first ever 1 seed to be knocked off by 16 seed. Then they come back in 2019 and win a national title. So I'm hoping Purdue can replicate that. I think so far the guys have used it as motivation and fuel, and they are definitely playing with a chip on their shoulder. It's just, they're not going undefeated, of course, because they lost in Northwestern in overtime, but they could have went undefeated, won the Big Ten regular season, won the Big Ten tournament. And in all honesty, really doesn't matter, because it's going to be all what they do come March Madness.
It's true. And unfortunately, you don't have a good player in the center. So if you can work around some marginal play in the paint, you guys will be okay.
Yeah.
That guy he's an animal.
Amazing thing about Zach Edey is this is only his 7th year playing basketball. I mean, he grew up playing hockey and baseball, and you can tell he's athletic. He's got good hands, good footwork.
Could you imagine that guy on a pair of skates? How big would
Oh
he look? How big would he look in a hockey rink?
I would not want to take a check on the boards from Zach Edey.
No, and
Or
he'd
in
probably.
baseball, he was a pitcher. Think about that, 7'4"
Oh
on
yeah,
the mound.
yeah. That's getting to you fast too.
Yeah,
He's releasing the ball a foot and a half closer than anybody else is.
yeah. I mean, Randy Johnson was opposing force as a 6'10" lefty. Add 6 more inches. Not
Yeah,
left-handed, but add 6 more inches to that. So, no. So we'll see what happens. Long ways to go, but it's been a fun start to the season. But you mentioned Ohio State. You mentioned Michigan. Yeah, the Big Ten. It's been an interesting year. I mean, Michigan. We've seen the scandal with Connor Stallions and the I don't even know
are
what we
you
want to
talking
call
about the Western Michigan part of it, or the Michigan, or which part are you? Central Michigan, excuse me.
There's so much of it. I mean, it's just layer after layer after layer. For a while, there was something new every day coming out, and I think the Big Ten as a whole, all fan bases, whether you like whichever of the 14 or the 13 other opposing schools you like, next year will be 17 opposing schools. I think we can all agree. I think we're all going to be rooting for Alabama in the college football playoff.
It's painful because I've had it with Nick Saban in Alabama.
Sure.
I mean, I've had it,
Sure.
but I hope that Alabama runs them over 49-0, and they might as well kick a field goal for good measure, 52-0.
And I was on my soapbox a few weeks ago on the Tan J Man show where I went on a big rant after the playoff selections came out, and I was one of the ones that wanted Florida State in and not Alabama.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I could talk to you about that for 30 minutes. You talk about it. You talk about the master hose job.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no question that Florida State and I was talking about it with some of my friends, and it's you can. I love Kirk Herbstreit, and everybody's been all over him because he's towing the line and all those things. And I mean, it's somewhat true. But before the selection show, you knew there was zero way that they were not going to keep an SEC school
Right.
in the playoffs. So
Right.
if Alabama doesn't pull off the ridiculous no two-man rush, 14-second last play against Auburn, they could have won the SEC championship, and they still could have theoretically put Georgia in, but it would have been a bad play. It would have looked bad, but they could have done it. But once Alabama beats Georgia, then Alabama's coming in because Texas beat Alabama. So Texas at Alabama. So Texas has to be in. And now you're at a spot where Florida State has to be number 4. And they couldn't do it because that would have left all the SEC schools out.
Yep. I mean, it was just unfortunate. The college football playoff committee's lucky this had never happened before this year. And they're kind of lucky it happened in the last year of this 4-team format. Next year, they're going to 12, which will be better. But you're crazy if you don't think we're going to be sitting here and arguing about who should have been the 12th team some year.
That's a fact. I mean, then it'll be that the next 5, everybody will be upset that, Ole Miss isn't getting in next year and Liberty's getting in, or SMU or whoever it is.
Exactly. And I get it. Was Florida State without Jordan Travis one of the top 4 teams? No, they're not. Alabama's better. Georgia's better, in my opinion. But Florida State's got a really good defense. And I will say, those kids did everything they had and everything that put in front of them, they accomplished. They still won against Florida without their starting quarterback. They won against Louisville, who's a top 25 team, with their third-string quarterback. And honestly, I think they're getting graded unfairly for that performance against Louisville, because I think if their backup quarterback would have played instead of a third string, they would have put up more points, and it would have looked a little different on the scoreboard than it did. So I just think it's awful. I mean, a Power 5 undefeated conference champ who, I mean, even with or without Jordan Travis, beat multiple SEC teams.
Yeah, they beat,
and they're left out.
I know, and the ACC had a better record head-to-head than SEC against SEC schools. The ACC had a better record, and this whole thing of they're a better team. Well, if that's the case, how many people thought Texas was going to go into Alabama and win that game?
Not many.
Nobody. I mean, I thought that Alabama would win that game by 3 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
So, and who thought that? Was there any chance that Alabama was going to beat Georgia and Atlanta in the SEC championship? I certainly didn't think so.
Mm-hmm.
So you play the games because you don't know. Like
That's a great
that's the
point.
whole reason you play the games, because okay, on paper LSU should have been way better than they were this year too, but they ended up having a terrible defense and they weren't as good as everybody thought they were going to be. It's like Texas A&M the last several years. If you just go on who should be better, Texas A&M should be winning 10 or 11 games every year.
Very good point.
And it drives me nuts because you play the game. It's like you see it in golf too. It's like, okay, how does Cameron Beckman win 3 tour events? On paper, nobody thought he was going to win those 3 tour events he played in, but he won all 3 of them. It's why you play the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it really tarnished the whole thing with the college football playoffs, because to me it seemed very straightforward. I don't care where you seed them. It doesn't matter where you seed them, but they needed to be in.
Yes. What it did for me was college football was always one of those sports that we were always told regular season matters. What you do in regular season matters. And then they did this. It's like you just went back against the word you've always told us.
Yeah, it's a fact. And they talk about scheduling matters too. And Ohio State schedules homes with Notre Dame's and Oregon's and all these things trying to get, and they have one coming up with Alabama. And so they do all these things. Well, Michigan, I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
How about Michigan's schedule this year?
Awful.
It's unbelievable.
Awful. I mean, and people wanted to make a big deal at the start of the year that Harbaugh was suspended for those 3 games. It's like they're playing, I don't even remember. I think it was Western Michigan and I don't even remember. Eastern Michigan, maybe the directional Michigan
UNLV
schools.
was UNLV.
Yeah. It was
I guarantee you could have been the head coach. I could have been the line coach, and Connor Stallions could have been on the sideline telling us what to play, and we would have won every one of those games.
It's true. It's true. So college football and college athletics in general, but college football, it's amazing the last couple of years how the sport has changed. I mean, we throw in the name, image, and likeness, NIL now. We throw in the transfer portal. And I understand that impacts other sports as well, but not as much as it impacts college football, I would say.
Oh, no. Like, I don't know. It's funny. I just talked to the Ohio State golf coach today, and we had a whole conversation about something else, but he didn't mention NIL or portal.
Right.
I mean, he's not trying to get somebody out of the portal. He's really happy that he signed a kid, last week that's going to be a good player, and he knows he's going to be there for 4 years.
Right.
Like it's football, and it'll be interesting. You follow college basketball much closer than I do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the atmosphere is in college basketball, but you certainly don't hear as much about it in basketball as you do football.
I think you'll have some bigger names in basketball. Not to say there wasn't big names in football, like Ohio State's quarterback, for instance, going to Syracuse, and Dylan Gabriel going from Oklahoma to Oregon. We've had some big names, but basketball, it seems like you have more of those names that even just the general college basketball fan know they'll enter the portal. But in basketball, you're playing with 12-man rosters. You're not playing with a roster of 70-some guys, and it's just crazy. And every program's going through it. Now, some are hit harder than others, and some are able to, like Ohio State can probably pick up the pieces more so than Illinois, let's say. But it's just been kind of fascinating to watch. And the NIL doesn't bother me as much. I was always in favor of athletes at least getting a portion of, a billboard they're on or jersey sales, things like that. Now, I think some schools don't use that the right way, but it's the transfer portal that bothers me more. I don't think the NCAA, imagine this, I don't think the NCAA put a lot of time in their decision making, and just after COVID and everything, they're like, we got to get stuff back on track. We're just going full force with this, and this, pushing all the chips in the middle, and didn't give it a lot of thought because it's just free agency, and it's just wild. And we're giving people. I see Louisville got a transfer quarterback from Texas Tech. He's going to play his 7th year next year.
Yeah,
I mean,
that whole thing too. is I was disappointed. It was at the UTSA quarterback that didn't play the other night. And I was really disappointed because I've taken a liking to that team and all that. But this was his 7th year. And I'm like, but I mean, Georgia did it.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, Bennett was 7 years.
Sure.
So he was there he graduated he ran out of eligibility when he was 25 without a college degree.
Yeah, that's
now,
no excuse for that.
Go figure out that can work.
So, I mean, I understand why teams do it. I mean, honestly, Notre Dame looks like they're going to be a team that's never going to develop a quarterback ever again. They're going to grab these 1-year guys, which it can be to me, that's putting a Band-Aid over a bullet hole. It's going to fix it for a year, but you're never going to have that long-term stability. But
and you run into, Aaron, my caddy Aaron is a diehard Notre Dame fan. And so when they got Hartman last year, he's texting me and he's like, let's go, national champions, all that stuff. Well, when he petered out at the end of the year, and like he was a good quarterback, but he was nothing what he was billed to be. Right. And then now he's not playing in the bowl game. He's opted out of the bowl game. And Aaron has blown my phone up about how disappointed he is and how that didn't work out. And then they get the kid from Duke.
Right.
And he was right back on my phone. Let's go, national contender.
He'll be the same way. And I'm not just saying this because I'm a Purdue fan and Notre Dame football is one of my least favorite things in sports, but I mean, I see them going 9-3 again, maybe 10-2.
Yeah.
But with the 12-team playoff, 10-2 might get Notre Dame in it because Notre Dame always gets the benefit of the doubt without a conference. But
if you're talking quarterbacks, you should just give a plug to your boy at the Raiders.
Aiden O'Connell, yes.
Yeah, you should give him a little pat on the back and a little plug because I thought he was a good, and I mean, he had the one game that was outrageous. He looked like Joe Montana recreated.
Well, yeah, against the Chargers.
Yeah, against the Chargers, which, I mean, that's also against the Chargers, but still, I mean, it's been fun to see him have an opportunity and step up and take advantage of it.
Yeah, it has. It pains me as a Bronco fan to see him on the Raiders. And I when on draft day, I was in a wedding on draft day, and we were all watching the draft getting ready. And we were actually watching when he got drafted by the Raiders, and all the guys popped pretty big and were giving me a bunch of flack. I'm like, why? Out of all the teams, why do you have to go to Vegas? But yeah, I do root for him to do well while I'm rooting for the Raiders to lose. Yeah, but it's been a cool story. So came to Purdue as an 8th string quarterback, and then as a walk-on, just worked his way up and became one of their better quarterbacks they've had in a long time. And yeah, he seems like a very nice guy. So
yeah, I like it.
Like to root for guys like that. So
I don't really root for Purdue either. So
yes, I know.
I mean, I kind of crossed the line there saying that, but yes, I've been happy for him.
Yes. One last thing about Ohio State football, Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm assuming he's going pro, but I've read some things this week that said he's still trying to make up his mind, and he's making up his mind about the bowl game still. You have any insight on that?
I don't.
Okay.
Now, I've heard some rumblings, but there is nothing of the people I've talked to over there. The only thing I will say is that what you're hearing is not made up. Like he legit is contemplating. I think it sounds like he's going to play the bowl game, which would be awesome. Mm-hmm. And I do think he legit is contemplating coming back.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's talked about it nonstop, and he comes from, he's a great kid, and everybody that I've talked to over there that deals with him talks about he's a great kid. He comes, the way his dad played, and he talks about all the time. All he wanted to do was come win a Big Ten championship and play in the Big Ten championship game and win a Big Ten championship. So it would be, if he does come back, he will go down. He will instantly get Archie Griffin status at Ohio State. He will be a legend in Columbus if he already is. Mm-hmm. But if he comes back for another shot at it, he'll write his own ticket. I got in a conversation with my brother about it, and he's like, he can't come back. He's going to pass too much money. Well, if he comes back and blows his knee out next year and never plays in the NFL, he will still own Columbus and make as much money as he'd ever make playing NFL football.
And that is one of the beauties of the NIL is, I mean, if the NIL wasn't around, I mean, for instance, we were talking about Zach Edey earlier, he wouldn't be back at Purdue right now as the reigning defending National Player of the Year. No way.
I don't
No
think
way.
so either.
I mean, he would have tested. I mean, he tried to test the waters in the NBA anyways, and he wanted guaranteed first round money, and everybody's like, yeah, you're gonna be second round pick if drafted at all. And he's like, well, in that case, I'm going back to Purdue where I can make $1 million and try to win a national championship.
Yeah.
So
and practice.
And practice, yeah, and actually just get be a college kid, which I doubt his college experience is even normal at all. I doubt he can go anywhere, not only because he's 7'4", but
it's more, his life there is more normal of a college kid than it's going to be the minute he is on an NBA team. I mean, you might as well be king of the campus for a little while and enjoy it.
That's true. So, last thing about college football, and should have mentioned this earlier. What is your opinion on the Big Ten growing to 18 teams and bringing in USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington next year?
Well, I think it's great for the image, and as we're Big Ten people, and so and we live in Big Ten country, and we watch all the games, and you hear this narrative for the last 15 years of it's all the SEC football is so much better.
It means more.
It means more. And even Vanderbilt, my brothers are Auburn graduates, and Vanderbilt would win all their games in the Big Ten. Well, that's just nonsense. But I mean, that's how
they think.
That is how they think. So to get Oregon and Washington and USC and UCLA, it's a huge get. Now and there's been a lot of talk with this with Chip Kelly, and he makes some really good points. How in the world is the Ohio State women's softball team going to go from Rutgers to UCLA?
Right.
I mean, yeah, in my opinion, I think Chip Kelly makes really good points. The football has to be separate from the other sports. The other sports, the minor sports, which I mean, I played a minor sport, but golf is a little different because you got 5 guys, and you can get on an airplane. We used to fly to California and play, but it was invitationals that everybody from across the country. Like if we were playing a Big Ten tournament, we would, it would be at Wisconsin's campus, or it would be at Ohio State, or it would be at Purdue. Like we played regional, but we also played national, but it was 5 guys. And I mean, you can do it with teams. Like, I don't know how you expect the girls softball team and the guys tennis team to schedule Rutgers one week, and then 3 weeks later they're going to be playing and they're going to go out for a 3-way match with USC and UCLA.
Yeah, it's all the logistics are going to kind of be a nightmare, I think, but that's for people who get paid a lot more than you and me to figure out.
So to quickly answer your question, the stronger we can make the Big Ten, the better off we are. And I
agree with that.
In a perfect world, I'd like to see, I'm not going to name schools, but Purdue certainly is not one of them. But I think at this point, there's some teams we could trim out and let whatever the new ACC is going to look like, or, whatever the new Big 12 is going to look like we have some schools, I think, the Big East, that could figure out a way to get into some different conferences. But we're going to be so strong that there's going to be some schools that have struggled that are really going to find themselves struggling.
Well, and I'm really anxious to see who's going to adapt to what, because we're bringing out these spread offenses that are just fast from the Pac-12, coming into more of a ground pound traditional, not all teams, but more line play traditional, and just seeing USC play in like Minnesota in November is going to be glorious. They complain when they go to South Bend in October. They don't know what cold is.
You are right. And it's also, we talk about it at our house all the time, because we're obviously all Big Ten people, but we talk about it all the time. What are these defenses going to do when they don't play defense in the Pac-12?
Right.
So when you get a team that's big and physical and has a good offense, like in Ohio State or Michigan or where Nebraska is headed or where Wisconsin is going to be, which Purdue got some good recruits too.
Mm-hmm.
You put some of these big physical teams that also have offense but they're all going to, Iowa, how many points is UCLA going to score against Iowa? They might not score.
Right. And Iowa could
So
probably actually maybe score against that defense.
they probably could.
Maybe.
They
I
probably
don't know.
could. But I think it's going to be, and you make a good point, the weather and
Oh, I
the
can't wait.
different atmosphere, it's going to be fantastic.
Because the kids from the Midwest, from Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, they're gonna be like, oh, we're going to California in November. Great.
Yeah, this is
Whereas
awesome.
the California kids are just gonna hate it. I just think
Yeah.
it's gonna be awesome to watch.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's
Yeah.
going to be fun. I'm excited about the whole thing, to be
Yep.
honest.
Yep. I wasn't sure at first. I was okay with USC and UCLA. And then when they did the Oregon Washington thing, I'm like, I feel like the Pac-12 was begging at the time because it was falling apart. So Oregon Washington just begged and got in. But over the last few months, I've grown to appreciate it.
I'm in the exact same boat. At the start, I was like, really? This
'cause
doesn't fit.
I still think they want to get to 20 one of these days. I don't know who that is. I know they love Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's too stubborn with the NBC deal. Even though the NBC's got a Big Ten deal now, they won't do it. So I don't know who else. I don't know who else they would grab.
Notre Dame would be a great fit.
They would. They should have been years ago.
It should have been years ago. And they already have built-in rivalries with a bunch of the Big Ten schools anyway that they aren't playing anymore that would come right back.
I think if the day comes where they don't have an agreement with NBC, I think that's how the Big Ten gets them. They have to play hardball and corner them, saying, if you don't come join our conference, we're not letting our conference teams play against you in football.
Yeah. So, I like it. Maybe you should be the commissioner.
I think I could have done a better job than Kevin Warren.
Yeah. Oh,
that guy was a train wreck.
Don't even get me started on him.
Oh, he was awful. He is not a Tane and J Man Show favorite. Let's put it that way.
Don't get me started on him.
Put it that way. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk some golf. And the golf world's just been an interesting place lately. Not that it always isn't, but I mean, in the past month, we've seen more LIV Golf, PGA Tour rumors, more movement than we have in a long time. Of course, when LIV Golf goes out and gets the number 2 player in the world, Jon Rahm, from the PGA Tour for a insane amount of money, that's going to send some shockwaves around the golf world. I guess, first off, what are your thoughts overall on LIV Golf?
Well, do you hear that?
Yes, I do.
If we're going to talk about that, if it's okay on this podcast,
it is always all right.
I'm just going to have a little sip of a beer before I get really on my soapbox here. So LIV Golf, you bring up Jon Rahm.
Yes.
And I will tell you, Jon Rahm, I used to, when I was still playing full time, they would have a orientation, one of the first tournaments, and this was even in the wraparound. So one of the first tournaments in the fall, they'd have an orientation where they would have a veteran player that would come and spend the day with all the rookies, and you'd be there with them in their classes, because there were media classes, financial classes, and whatever. And so the veteran would sit in those classes with them. And then at the end of the day, they'd have a closed door session, and for 2 hours, I sat in there with the rookies, and there was nobody from the PGA Tour that was in the room. It was just me and however many there were that year, 27 or whatever rookies. And Jon Rahm was in that rookie class. And so it was interesting because there were some of the guys, Wesley Bryan was in that class, and Wesley Bryan decided that the way he was going to handle it was he was going to try to poke jabs at me and make fun of me during the session. And then you had people like the no hat, which you'll know who it is, Ali, never wore a hat, Mizuno guy.
Oh, yes.
He was in that class, and as soon as I started talking, he stood up with his backpack and walked out the door, and that was fine.
Jeez.
So there were all these, it was every phase of things. Well, John Rahm sat there and was super nice, super respectful, asked intelligent questions. And at the end of the 2 hours, he was the only one that came up and shook my hand and said, "Thank you for your time." And so John Rahm, early on with me, scored a lot of points. I was like, he's got it right. He's got his priorities right. He's got his respect factor right. He's a heck of a competitor, incredible talent. He's got all these things. He's going to be a superstar. He turned out to be a superstar.
Mm-hmm.
A year ago, he was, it was 2 years ago. He said they could offer me $400 million and it wouldn't change my life. I'm not going.
Right.
And Fred Couples on his, and I got the quote here, so I didn't misquote him, but Fred Couples on his, I'm sure you saw this. Did you see it?
I did.
100 million doesn't get it. 200 million doesn't get it. 300 million doesn't get it. Couples said on his radio program, but 400 million, it's a great product and it's a great show. And that is, and he said, but don't sit there and go on and say they are changing the game. For 50 years, golf has been changed. Arnold Palmer changed it. Jack Nicklaus changed it. Tiger Woods changed it. And the LIV Tour ain't changing a thing. So the problem that I have with the LIV situation is that Harold Varner is the only one that came out and I feel like was honest about it. He said, look, I like the PGA Tour better. I want to play the PGA Tour. I want my legacy to be on the PGA Tour, but I can't turn down this money.
Life-altering money. Yeah.
I'm going for the money.
Yeah.
He's the only one. All the other ones are talking about spreading the game and growing the game and making the game better. And I've been on both sides of it. I grew up totally out of the golf business, but loving golf. Then I was in the golf world in high school, college, 25 years on tour. My family owns a golf course. My brother was PGA of America guy, still is. My son's the head pro at our course. I gave 5 hours of lessons today at our course. I've been on both sides of it. And the only people that are growing the game are the guys that are doing 70 hours a day in the golf shop.
Right.
They're the ones that are growing the game. So now, sure, you get Tiger Woods, the most famous person on the planet. He's going to bring people into the game,
right?
But it's up to the other people to grow the game. So are you going to get more people involved? Yes. Did Arnold Palmer transform the game? 100%. Did Jack Nicklaus transform the game? 100%. For this matter, Fred doesn't talk about Greg, but did Greg Norman transform the game? 100%. Did Tiger? 100%. Are they growing the game? No. And this is just my opinion. They are changing the way the game looks, which might bring people in, but the people that are growing the game are the people in the golf shop and the people at the backdrop that are making the experience good, the superintendents that are making the golf courses playable. Those people are ones that so they see on TV Tiger Woods doing something great, and they're like, you know what, I'm going to go try golf. Well, if they don't have a golf course to go to, or they don't have a driving range, or they don't have somebody nice to help them with the process, they're not going back. So it's not this idea of playing 54-hole tournaments and having crazy party holes every week. And, the one thing I talk, and if you want me to quit talking, I can just keep going on. But
just keep going.
The one thing that from the time that I was in high school up until 4 years ago, it was the same thing that everybody always said to me. And at the base of it, it's like, oh, golf is so much fun and so interesting and incredible to watch because you guys have to earn your money. And they're like, so, and when I first got on tour, people would be like, so I'm sure that the tour pays you each week, right? And I'm like, no. If I go to Hawaii back when I was playing, Hawaii was the first tournament. If I go to Hawaii, which I played Hawaii every year, I go to Hawaii and I miss the cut, I'm $9,000 out.
Yeah.
Not only are they not paying me, but I'm paying all my expenses. Chris Carpenter, one of my very best friends, won a couple World Series with the Cardinals. When he and I started hanging out at like 2001 time period, he was, he never touched his luggage, and they stayed in the Four Seasons, and he got a per diem he got $300 per meal while he was on the road, and he was getting $7 million salary.
Right.
And like, he caddied for me in a couple tournaments, and we go to these tournaments, and he's like, wait a minute, you have to make your own hotel reservation? Well, yeah. You have to get your own rental car? Well, yeah. But that's what made it so great, and what made it kept everybody. You had to continue to get better, or not only were you not going to stay on tour, but you weren't going to provide for your family that was sitting at home. And I don't have any problem with in this day and age, and as big as sports have gotten, and all the TV money that Tiger Woods brought into existence, this PIP money, the tour is right now chasing LIV, and they have these designated events that are ridiculous amount of money, and they've got this extra $40 million in PIP money, and they've changed the retirement structure, and you've got all this money all of a sudden now in this retirement structure when I was on tour, it was a very good retirement idea. It was like a safety net. So when you're done playing, you're going to, if you played I knew the number at one point, but if I played my 427 pro-ams on Wednesday and kept my card for 5 years straight or longer, then when you're done, we're going to make sure that as you're doing other things, we're going to help you.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I have no problem with the tour saying, okay, at the start of every year, everybody that has their full tour card, it's $200,000 is going right to you. That's going to allow you and your family to travel the events you want to play. I think that would be great, because my rookie year, it was 1996 was my rookie year. And my rookie year, now the purses were drastically different. I did not keep my card, and I had to go back to Q school. I made like I think I made $47,000, and I finished, and you can fact check me on this, or anybody listening can fact check me. My recollection is that I was somewhere between 150 and 170th on the money list. I made 40, which now that's, who knows what that is now. That's probably an extra zero on that. It's probably 700. Yeah. But I made like $50-ish thousand, and traveling and doing that stuff with a wife and one child, which at the time Beth was still working some, but she tried to come to some tournaments. We spent like 97,000. So I made it to the pinnacle of my profession, the thing I dreamt of my whole life, and I lost $50,000. I mean, that's tough.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But that's not the case now. So
no, it's amazing how sports in general, the money. I mean, we could pivot and talk Shohei Ohtani, but we won't. But I'm just saying, just contracts and salaries and everything.
Wait a minute, I don't know. He's only making $2 million a year. He's the best bargain out there.
Oh, his agents are amazing. I mean, amazing. I mean,
I'm kidding.
That should not be allowed, though. The MLB should do something about that, but they won't. But
yeah, so I at the end of the day, and Shane Lowry had an interesting one today too. I screenshotted this so I could share this with you today. Shane, did you see Shane Lowry's
I did not
today? No. He's talking about John Rahm, and he said, "They own you now." And I mean, that's also, it's true. If you're going to pay somebody $400 million to come play golf 20 times a year, then whatever they want you to do, you're going to do it.
Oh yeah. I mean, you could tell when he showed up on Fox News in the LIV Golf bomber jacket.
Yeah.
Right then it's like, well, that's who he is now.
Okay.
Yeah. So
it's sad because, and I'll let you go whatever direction you want, but I will say this, the house that I'm sitting in, the things that I've gotten to do over my life that have been, like being friends with Chris Carpenter.
Mhm.
And I never would have. Now, once we became friends, it was like we've been together since kindergarten. But if it weren't for the PGA Tour, I never would have met Chris Carpenter.
Sure.
Like, I mean, everybody wants to play golf, right? So when I'm hanging around the Cardinals locker room, Albert Pujols is also a very good friend of mine. And I never would have met Albert Pujols without golf. So not only my house and everything that I have goes directly back to the PGA Tour, but also all the relationships that are me for the last 30 years is also because of the PGA Tour. So I never lost sight of what I feel I owe the PGA Tour. And the last breath I take, I am going to be grateful for the PGA Tour, because the PGA Tour not only allowed me to, I was on the Rochester Elks as a 7-year-old in my head hitting shots on PGA Tour events, and the PGA Tour provided a place for me to do that. As long as I worked hard enough and got good enough, I made it, and they provided me the place to do it. And they also paid me to do it, which is just like, whoa, okay, this is incredible. So now I'm commentating, and when I go in to commentate for a tournament, that is still every bit centered in my heart that it was 20 years ago when I was playing and making a bunch of money and everything was good and I was enjoying the spoils of the tour at the time. But it still is every bit as passionate to me. I go into a commentating event or, each individual show carrying the PGA Tour banner on my back, because I owe the PGA Tour, like, I owe them not only a huge thank you, but I also have a responsibility, I feel like, to continue to build the brand and let people know these people aren't going to live, which you got me on my soapbox, but these people are not going to live because the tournaments are better or their legacy is going to be better. You ask, if you put any of them on a lie detector machine and ask them a question, do you want to win the Saudi Open on the LIV, or do you want to win the Greater Milwaukee Open on the PGA Tour? If money had no part in it, every single one of them is going to say, I want the PGA Tour win.
Right.
So it is nothing more than money, and it's nothing more, which Greg Norman was always super nice to me, and I have no personal quarrels with Greg Norman, because he treated me from the time I was in college to the last time I saw him in Mexico 6 years ago. He's always treated me great. But this is he's been on this mission since the early 90s, trying to disrupt the PGA Tour and create a world tour and see if he can't be the guy that's running the world tour. So this is a personal mission to him, that he gets in tight with these Saudi investors and the Saudi money. And he's like, well, we've got $10 billion.
We got endless amount of money.
Yeah.
Endless.
What are we going to do with $10 billion?
Yeah.
Let's see who we can tug on. And honestly, again, this is opinion, but up until John Rahm, the number of players that the PGA Tour lost, the reality of it is that nobody that watches a PGA Tour on a regular basis is going to miss any of those guys.
Yeah, I think a lot of them, in my opinion, were kind of over the hill, so to speak.
Easy.
I know, for even though I say that, and Mickelson just won a major a couple of years ago.
He was on the downward slide. You're right.
But you know what I'm saying. A lot of them are kind of past their prime, and you could speak better on this than I can. I feel like a lot of them, maybe until Rahm, a lot of them weren't well liked guys on the tour, so they weren't real missed around the tour, just from an outsider perspective.
Well, I was saying from an insider perspective, I was saying something similar in a different way. I don't think that anybody really missed them.
Yes. Yes.
But there are exceptions like
Sure. And
Charles
I know you got friends. I'm sure you have friends that play on Live or
Charles
guys that
Warren,
treated you well.
one of the nicest guys on the planet, made $1 bazillion playing the PGA Tour. Absolutely, his retirement plan is it would blow your mind. Won tournaments on the PGA Tour. He makes no sense to me why he would go. I don't understand why he went. It makes no sense. Taylor Gooch makes no sense to me. Taylor Gooch, young kid, great player, having great success on the PGA Tour. It makes no sense why he'd go. The rest of them, you can point at him and say, okay, this I get it. I understand.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. I know why he went. I know why he
Mm-hmm.
went. But
Mm-hmm.
the problem at the end of it all, the problem that I see, this is another quote that I hear from all these live guys that drive me crazy. This is for the betterment of the game and all this stupid crap that you hear. But really, what's going to end up happening is that, in my opinion, you get down the road on this. If this course stays, your people are only going to care about 4 tournaments a year,
Yes, and that's where I was
maybe
going
5.
next. Yes.
And because nobody's going to know who's playing where and who's
No.
playing what, and you're already seeing sponsors drop out
Yep.
because they aren't getting the same bang for their buck, because they see the writing on the wall that, okay, the Colonial, an incredible tournament, one of the great invitationals of the last 80 years on the PGA Tour, Ben Hogan's stomping grounds, like the whole thing. Well, if you don't even have any idea who's going to show up at, especially in this day and age with everything that's at your fingertips,
Yeah.
like you're not going to watch, maybe tune in on Sunday afternoon.
Yep.
If you get a flash on your phone that somebody you like in golf is having a tournament, then maybe on Sunday afternoon you watch the last 9 holes, but nobody's like, it's going to
Right.
turn into the 4 majors and the Players Championship.
And that's where I wanted to pivot because I'm a big golf fan, as you know, and I tune into a lot of tournaments, and I have watched some live, even though I always forget it's on the CW and it's hard to find sometimes.
Yeah,
But
I can't. I've
it,
never watched it
yeah,
because
you
I
never watched it. It's
never watched a shot.
there. There's some of their presentation I wish the PGA Tour would presentation wise would take, but a lot of it's just different. And there are some golfers over there I enjoy watching. I will be honest about that,
Name one.
but I like watching Brooks Koepka and Phil Mickelson play golf.
Oh, I like Brooks.
I
That's
like watching how they play. And there's some on there I can't stand.
You can go ahead and name that too if you want.
Patrick Reed, can't stand
Yeah.
the guy.
Well, he's not missed, let me tell you.
Sergio, can't stand the guy.
I like
Um,
Sergio, but I understand why he went. I mean,
but
he's the perfect example of
yeah,
who you're talking about. Like, he
right.
went because he was on his way out.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just think if this stays the course, like you said, like if it does, and it comes down to, the golf fans are going to, right now, I would say the average golf fan to the people who aren't even golf fans, they'll tune in for the 4 majors. But if this stays the course, I'm afraid even the diehard golf fans are going to start only tuning into 4 majors and maybe a couple other tournaments. And I just think it's odd because I'm one, as a sports fan, I like competition. I think competition brings the best out of everybody. Um, this is gonna be a weird analogy, but I'm a pro wrestling fan. I think the more pro wrestling promotions out there, the better. They bring the best out of everybody, and you have varieties of what you want to watch or can watch. But when it comes to golf, I feel like the golf fan, if this stays course, is going to be the big loser in all of this, because even in the 4 majors, we aren't guaranteed to always see the best players in the world with this setup.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And that's a byproduct, in my opinion, of it. There's all kinds of trickle down things that are going to happen
Mm-hmm.
with this. And the PGA, basically what we're saying by golf fans only watching 4 or 5 tournaments is that, the PGA Tour is going to lose some of its pull and some of its
Sure.
strength and some of its clout. So then what that does, and it ain't like the LIV is going to pick up, LIV isn't, if what's a good Nationwide, if Nationwide pulls out of sponsoring PGA Tour events, do you think they're going to go to Saudi and do a deal with the Saudis? No, they're not. So it's going to weaken, it's going to dilute the product. It's going to weaken the product, and it is going to turn into, and it, it's going to force which Jay, I like Jay. I wish he would have done things differently when this started, but I think Jay is I know Jay is a nice person, and I know that Jay is very smart. I think he could have handled this differently, because I think that he was so used to the PGA Tour having the upper hand on everything that he's going to strong arm it, and it's going to go away. It's really hard to strong arm $10 billion.
Endless amount of money. Yep.
Yeah, $10 billion was shot at it, like right out of the box.
Right.
So it's like, that means if
you're already behind the game,
if you shoot 10 billion out, that means there's probably another 100 billion sitting there waiting.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, it's going to dilute the product. It's going to make the average tournament way less popular. Yeah. As you know, I've gotten into this commentating thing, and I'm worried about how many of the events are going to be televised now. Are they going to keep pushing? Are they going to, Hartford was an elevated event. Are they still, it's not this year, but it was last year. Is Hartford even going to still be an event where, right. I mean, there's no way they're going to be able to keep the pace up that they're at right now. You can't.
Right. Right. And it is fascinating to me how, and I know NBC owns the Golf Channel and their full PGA Tour, but it is fascinating to me how the Golf Channel will do whatever they can not to talk about LIV.
Oh,
to the fact where my dad brought this up to me this week. He was watching something and they were showing highlights of the majors. They didn't show highlights of this past year's Masters or PGA Championship, but they showed the Open and the US Open. It's kind of like they want to they don't want to acknowledge any other happening. Well, they will acknowledge the DP World Tour.
Oh yeah,
but they don't want to acknowledge LIV at all.
That's because we're partners with the DP,
right?
So not only are they acknowledging the DP World Tour, they are pumping it up, and they are continuing to make the DP World Tour a bigger thing. When before this whole LIV thing came about, the DP World Tour was, it's really, it was the big argument was, is the Korn Ferry or the DP Tour better? Which tour has a higher, because the narrative at that time was, and it's true, with you could pull out a few exceptions over the years of guys that could have played the PGA Tour but were from Europe and they stuck with the DP Tour. But for the most part, anybody that Lee Westwood or Rory or whoever that is coming from, they're trying to get, if they're going through the DP World Tour, they're trying to get to the PGA Tour.
Sure.
But now, we're partners, and we're money list goes to the PGA Tour. Now all of a sudden they're showing the highlights on all the broadcasts I do. They're showing the DP World Tour highlights during the broadcast and what's going on over there. And I get it. They're strengthening the brand, but it is, you do not, when you are on a PGA Tour broadcast, it's
just fascinating to me because
LIV is not something you talk about.
I mean, it was just fascinating to me. I think the one time I do remember them mentioning was when Bryson shot that 58 or 59, whatever it was, in West Virginia this year. They did mention it just for like a second because it was one of those accomplishments. Like, okay, no matter where you're playing, that's a hell of a round. I mean, it's
really hard. I mean, put yourself in the position of the producers or the directors of the show who are dealing with headquarters.
Right.
It's a hard position because you want to talk about golf and what's going on in the world of golf, but you also, I mean, you got a group of whatever. I mean, there's 48 players or however many there are, but there's really only 10 of them that are household names, and you've got them over there in shorts playing a shotgun start in a golf cart, drinking beer and listening to music. I mean, They
a different
are.
world.
It
Yeah,
is
yeah,
a
you're
stark
right.
contrast. And as soon
Yeah,
as you start giving
yeah,
it legitimacy, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, this is Live Tour had a great finish this week, and they flash over there, and there's a guy sitting there in a cart drinking a beer with his
yeah,
speaker going, and he's 170 yards on the last hole. He's got to make a birdie to win. And you're like, wait a minute, what is this?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Probably just don't want to bring attention to the I don't even want to say competition, but to the alternative. But it just fascinates me because we saw it with Brooks this past year. Um, winning a major. Not Rahm at the time because he's on PGA Tour. But we see Brooks win the PGA, and the Golf Channel had to talk about him. And I just see the PGA running into that problem more and more in these majors in the future.
Oh, yeah.
It's just
It's
fascinating how it's all going to work out to me because
it's
in the Ryder Cup we saw Rory come out and say we got to find a way to get John in New York in 2025. Bethpage, I'm thinking, of course you are because that's one of your horses. But also I'm like, well, then some rules got to be changed.
yeah, like
So
in that
what are we doing here?
I gave you the Shane Lowry quote,
Right?
but Shane Lowry followed that up with, we got to figure out a way to get him to Bethpage next year.
I
Okay.
mean, okay. I mean the Americans found a way to get Brooks on there, but Brooks mainly from his major win pretty much had tons of points there. But I'm sure the American team would have liked to grab maybe one or two more, probably just one more guy, maybe Bryson. At the time he was playing well, maybe not. But I mean, okay, so if Europe's team's going to be able to, then America better be able to. And it's a fascinating thing, for my opinion, because something's got to give if that's going to happen.
How did you, this totally
Yes,
same subject, but we're talking about the Ryder Cup.
yes.
How did you feel about Zach's picks?
I didn't think they were good. I
I mean, how can you pick Justin Thomas? I
I
mean,
mean, he was playing, and I like Justin Thomas. I don't know him, of course, personally, but I think he seems like a great guy. No, um, uh, but he was not playing well at all this year at
terrible.
all.
He couldn't even get in the playoffs.
Yeah, and
So
he
and
listed his goals the other day. The only goal he hit was making the Ryder Cup team. That was
yeah,
it.
that
His
I
goals.
saw it. I saw it. It was all a bunch of red X's and one
Yeah,
green
and one
check, and it
green
was
check, which
making the Ryder Cup team because
yeah,
he is picked when he should never have been
right,
picked.
right. And I don't know Zach Johnson personally, but I did not think he did a good job as a captain.
Zach is a very nice individual with an incredible playing record for the style of golf he plays. To have won all the tournaments and majors, he did incredible. Uh, I I think that he fell a little short with the
Yeah,
captaincy of the Ryder Cup, but also he's been an assistant captain or for however many years in all these events, and uh, you know, I think they needed some new blood to
yeah,
go to Europe, and they didn't pick the new blood. And then not only did they not pick any new blood, they went to the old boys school to make the captain's picks. And I mean, are you kidding me? Not picking Lucas Glover? I mean,
yeah.
and
I mean, the guy was on fire. He
the guy
deserves it.
the guy everybody loves him, a
Hmm.
laid back, great personality, an impeccable ball striker,
Hmm.
and bar none, not even close, the hottest player in the world at
Yeah,
the
and his
time.
putter was hot at the time, and momentum's a thing in golf too. I mean, you can't tell me
Oh,
otherwise.
you ain't kidding.
And of course, as a big Ricky Fowler fan I am, I was a little peeved that he didn't send him out much in the Ryder Cup either. And I know there was that rumor that he wasn't feeling well, which never really got confirmed. That was weird.
No, I
Um,
I don't buy that for a
yeah.
second. Which
So
I
I
mean,
was a little mad that he didn't get sent him out at least one more time than he did, but whatever.
I agree with you. I'm 100% with you. Send Ricky out
Hmm.
and don't pick Justin,
Yep.
and have the courage to do some things different. I mean,
Got to try something different. Haven't won in
I
Europe
mean,
since the early 90s. So,
Keegan Bradley and Lucas Glover. Now,
yep.
Keegan Bradley is he, he's not part of the group for a lot of reasons. But okay, that might be good. Like that might be a good thing. But he was also very deserving of being on the team. Those two guys. But it'll be interesting because you're right. The Europeans are going to find a way to get all these live guys on the team.
Oh yeah. Oh, they're going to find a way. They don't want to lose that cup. And they got Donald coming back for Bethpage, which is smart on their part. He was a pretty good captain, and
he did a great job, and he's also a fantastic guy.
It was just fascinating because I think you'll remember the 2023 Ryder Cup though more than anything for the Joe LaCava and Roy McIlroy and all that drama that went down.
I love Joe. Like Joe is one of my favorite people on the planet, but he was out of line.
Yeah.
I was watching it live and I was like, oh, what is he? It was so far out of character for Joe LaCava. You have no idea. And then he didn't back down.
No.
And then he started yelling at the other Europeans on the side of the green. Like it was ugly.
Then they about got into it in the parking lot. Or, when they were leaving, Roy and the valet, he had to be held back. So
at some point, I will talk to Joe, and I will be anxious to hear his side of the story because that is so far out of character for Joe LaCava. I can't even describe it.
Yeah, you got to think something egged him on, something that we haven't been told or seen.
Yeah,
but
I would agree with you.
I don't know, but it's going to be fascinating coming 2025 what the rosters look like for sure. For sure,
they'll find a way.
Well, you mentioned multiple times when we were talking about LIV and PGA Tour of commentating. That's something you got into this past season with the PGA Tour. Let everybody know what you did, how you got into that, how you're enjoying it, and what your future plans look like in commentating.
Well, it's something that Kurt Byram, who is one of the anchor guys on NBC and the Golf Channel, is a good friend of mine, has been for years. And we do an outing together in Chicago every year. And about 4 years ago, my fire was starting to dwindle. And he and I started talking about commentating. He said, I think you'd be great at it. You should try to work your way in there. And so I spent 3 years trying to work my way in there with help from him and other people in the business. And they said, you know what, we'll let you try some last year. And I said, that'd be great. The first event I did, I was more nervous the first event I did than any shot I ever hit in a golf tournament. It was a little surreal of an experience, but at the end of it, I absolutely loved it. It's a very long day. So you got to be on property at 6 and you don't leave property until you're off the air. So that's 6 o'clock East Coast time. So if we're doing an East Coast tournament, you're on property from 6 to 6. It's a long day.
A lot of steps. But
the beauty of it is that when you're at 6 o'clock, when you take your headset off, you're done. Like you can go to your room and have a beer and you can go have dinner and you don't have to go to the range. You aren't stressed out about, oh my gosh, my driver was bad today. I got to figure how am I going to hit my driver tomorrow? Like you're done. It's over and it's great. And you get up in the next morning and you're still under the cut line, right? You're still leading the tournament and you haven't practiced. You haven't done anything. So the whole experience was outstanding. I absolutely loved it. And my first one this year is in March.
Do you get to pick your schedule or?
No, I'm not that fortunate yet.
Okay. I didn't know how that worked.
I signed my contract this past weekend, so I know I'm in next year.
Awesome.
But they will tell me when I'm coming and when I'm not. And I can't remember what the tournament is in March, but it's the last full week of March is my first event. And then I have one in April, one in May, I think a couple in June. And
the last week of March, Texas Children's Houston Open. Does that sound right?
What's the dates?
March 28th through 31st.
Yep. That's my first one.
Houston.
So I'm super excited about it. Which you'll appreciate this. And like there's not a lot to talk about with this, but the one thing that two things I really enjoyed about it was, one, what I said, that you work and you have to do your research. You have to watch golf all the time. You have to know about your players. You spend a bunch of time the night before in your hotel room with the computer studying the players and who your group is going to be tomorrow and all those things. But then it's gone. And the other thing that was really incredible about it was that it made me feel like I was part of golf again.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, you sit here in Peru, come up to bowling in Rochester every Tuesday night. And, 5 years later, you're like, these guys probably don't even remember who I am. You just don't feel like you're a part of it. But then I started commentating with Mark Carnevale and Kurt Byram, and which, I mean, I know Kurt because we talked, but Brian Katrick, I did some stuff with Brian Katrick, with Carl and Dennis Paulson. I was on their team a couple times. And it's like we had been together the whole time. The relationship stayed. And that part of it was, I'll tell you, the first week I was driving to the airport afterwards, and I was flying higher than a kite. I was so happy and so excited, and it was so rewarding to feel like I was a part of it again, because it's all I knew. My whole life for 50 years was golf, golf, golf. And now I'm still teaching and play with my dad and with Cameron and those things. But to be back in the arena is spectacular.
Well, I can hear it in your voice. It's kind of ignited the passion. It seems
Yeah,
like it's back,
it's
and,
terrific.
the excitement. I can tell how much you're enjoying it. And for everybody that might not know, you can listen to you on the PGA Tour app and on Sirius XM Radio, correct?
That is correct. And last year I was the feeds on ESPN. So you can
Yes,
get me on ESPN and ESPN Plus.
ESPN, ESPN Plus. There you go. Gives everybody a reason to subscribe. ESPN
Yeah,
Plus, right
there you go.
there, right there.
I'm not really a reason to subscribe, but there's a lot of other great things that go along with ESPN and ESPN Plus. So go ahead.
You and Peyton Manning, you
Yeah,
know.
right. It's on the same breath.
we might see you on the Manning cast if you keep going the way you're going.
Well, I watched the Manning cast, and
I like those. I
oh,
prefer, if the Broncos, as long as the Broncos aren't playing Monday Night Football, that's my preferred method to watch. I
did
enjoy
you
that more than
did you see
Buccaneers.
it the other night when CMC was on?
Yes, I did.
And how about Kirk Cousins the week before?
Yeah,
I mean, how
awesome.
how good was Kirk Cousins? Like,
I don't know how people can't root for that guy.
oh my gosh! Like, you watch it, he if he doesn't get a contract and commentating when he's done playing, there is something wrong,
Yep,
because the
he was
guy
great.
is genuine, sincere, nice, and he was spot on. Every single thing that was happening on the field, he was spot on.
It's amazing to me whenever they have any football player, but particularly a quarterback on, just their IQ level of football. Even
Oh,
the ones that aren't that great, it's just
yeah.
like they know so much. It just blows my mind.
It's unbelievable. And I'm a huge football fan, more college than NFL, but like, I've paid attention to it my whole life, and you're a huge NFL fan. So I know enough about it that it's fun to listen to the insight, because
Oh yeah,
they're like, oh yeah. And they can see as soon as they go up to the line, Kirk Cousins knew the exact coverage that was being played and where he needed to go with the ball and what the defense was going to do. Like, it was fascinating to me.
it is. It is, and it's fun to watch them watch their peers play,
Yeah.
and you can tell they really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Not worrying about their own team for a little bit and just talking ball with the Mannings and having fun chopping it up. So,
Yeah. I love
um,
it.
well, before I let you go, I see the Circle 15 hat on your head, looking good as always. How are things going with Circle 15? And can you explain to everybody that might not be aware what Circle 15 is, what you guys do over there?
In a quick nutshell, 5 years ago, we started developing a glove, not club, because a lot of times when I give this speech, they're like, oh, really? Where can I buy your clubs? And this is not a golf club. This is a golf glove that you put on your hand. But I worked with our research department and developed a glove that I always wanted when I was playing. And quite honestly, it turned out very well. If it was a crappy glove, I would probably say, yeah, it's been really fun. But in all reality, it's an exceptional glove with the best quality leather that you can buy. Literally, there is not another glove on the market that the leather is. We are what's called a double A throughout the entire glove. All the other top brands, the Callaways, the FootJoys, all those have parts B grade, parts C grade. Their main part is double A, but like our glove is comprised of the highest leather that you can buy, and it's I developed it a little bit thicker because I like the feel of a little bit thicker glove, and so the wear on it goes. That's the only complaint that all the people around here wear them, and the only complaint is like your glove lasts too long. Like I don't have to buy them, and it's bad for your company. I said no. Like we want happy customers, and it's done great. We're up to I think 13 colleges that are wearing it, which I mean, I hate to give them a plug, but that team up north is it's a Nike Air Jordan school, but they are wearing the Circle
There you
15
go.
glove. But that's we have a bunch of schools that are wearing it. We have consistently grown. We've had a good year this year. We're still not making money, but that's okay. We are not losing money,
Hey,
and we
even
are
better.
reinvesting capital. We are past that point, but we've already far exceeded our take last year, and we just keep reinvesting, and it's been good. So it's circle15golf.com. Aaron, my caddy, is involved in the company and works very hard on it, and it's been a fun little side thing that has started out thinking it was the side, but you quickly realize that when you're trying to do things, it's a lot of time and a lot of effort. Ball State, we got Ball State in the glove this year. So it's been like those things are fun, and it's been rewarding, and it's been something that we've enjoyed doing. We have a great product. So
Yes, you do. I own multiple of their gloves, even though I'm one person that goes through one glove a year. I don't know if I just don't sweat that much as everybody else or what.
no,
Even when
you
I was
have
playing, even when I was playing with the FootJoys and the Titleist gloves and everything, I'd only go through about one a year. But so
that means you have perfect grip pressure. That's all that means. You have a perfect grip with perfect grip pressure.
I am cutting that part out right there, and that is going to be the headline of this interview.
Perfect
But
grip pressure.
but no, I can't speak highly enough of your gloves, your hats. I love the hats. You guys got ball repairs, the humidors. You got to get yourself a humidor.
Yeah.
Love that thing. You guys are always coming out with new products. Everything looks great. Um, yeah,
That's
just doing a
that.
great job.
Yeah, it's been fun, and you're not a pretender because I do see you up there at Round
Oh yeah.
Barn every once in a while. And which have you heard? Are you still a member at Round Barn, even though that you
I'm
are
not a member anymore, but I still frequent back to play. Let's put it
you
that way.
you might want to think about getting a membership, because I'm hearing in this little inside scoop on your podcast, but I'm hearing rumblings of the fact that there's going to be a Ryder Cup competition between the Round Barn and Rock Hollow Golf Club this year.
I am aware of that. I was on a text chain about that. So
Yes, that is, and I also understand that there's already questions out there if I'm going to be playing or not, and they need to figure out, like, we should have learned this over the last several years with the Calcutta and all those things. You can't beat strokes. I don't know if you've ever heard me say that, but you can't beat
yes.
strokes, and it is all going to be grouped with the caliber of player that you are matched up with. So, Bobby Shane is not going to have to play me if if he's fortunate enough to get picked on the Ryder
Yeah.
Cup team.
Yeah. It'll be fun. It'll be fun. It's a very cool idea.
It'll be great. It's at Rock this year, and then I think what we're going to do is we're going to alternate each year. So in 24 it'll be at Rock, 25 at Round Barn.
Oh, yep.
We'll
Very cool.
We'll have to get your dad on that team.
Yeah, he's I give him flack about getting his age, but I gotta admit, I think 2023 was the best golf year altogether I've seen him have. So he's getting better with age. I don't know.
You're spoiling it, because I'm going to do some research on his handicap then before
That's all
the
right.
Ryder Cup.
I know at one time it was as low as it's ever been this year. I don't know if it finished there, but at one time.
I know Shep is already who you do your wrestling podcast with. Shep has already told me that he's committed to play on the Round Barn team, which just really irritates me. It's going to motivate me to prepare and have my game in as good a shape as possible.
I give him enough flack on Wednesday nights, so I'll keep my comments nice tonight.
Well, you know what? Next week I'll have to tune in on Wednesday night.
Please do.
Yeah, I'll tune in on Wednesday night and start firing some questions about the Ryder Cup.
Please do. He gets some. He leans into so many gimmicks. He gets more comments from people on YouTube than Paul or I. It's great. It's great that people want to pick on Shep. So
I do too. I'm part of it.
Well, one more question for you, Chris. I'll let you go. Once again, I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me this evening. It's been a lot of fun. You mentioned Aaron Kuhn multiple times, your caddy, during this podcast. You guys had a fun podcast going for a while there. Another Bad Yardage. Can we expect to see that come back?
Yes,
come back, or a different podcast or anything like that?
I'm gonna be back on the airwaves one way or another in 2024. Right. So Aaron has a young child, and Aaron's got a lot of iron in the fire right now, and is very busy. But I told him about a month ago. I said, "Okay, here's the deal. Either we're starting back up in January." We were just starting to get a little bit of traction. When I started doing the commentating stuff, I've been on Carl and Dennis Paulson's show several times, and they talk about the podcast all the time. And so like we were starting to get some, and he got busy, but if he doesn't want to do it in 2024, I do have another person that has already said yes. And it would be an interesting podcast because this person would remain nameless throughout his entire podcast career, so that he feels like he can say the things that he wants to say without it being a problem in other parts of his life.
I like
so
it.
I'm just going to throw that little teaser out there. So everybody that listens to yours, just every once in a while, check in and see if I've got some kind of a podcast going, because if it's with that individual, it would be very interesting and entertaining. I shouldn't have probably said that, but well, he is a very well-connected person in a totally different area of life than golf. And it would be a very interesting, fun podcast.
Well, for everybody out there, for the time being, go subscribe to Another Bad Yardage on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast at. And while you're at it, make sure you're subscribed to the Tina J Man Show. I know a lot of people listen, but you might not be subscribed. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if Chris comes up with a different podcast, I will make sure that everybody knows about it. So
yes.
So thanks again, Chris. This has been a lot of fun. Really appreciate you taking the time to just chat some sports with me.
Oh, I love it. Anytime. I hope you, your family, and all the listeners have a very safe and Merry Christmas and Happy Holiday. And the last thing I will say is make sure you enjoy and appreciate every single day. It is a great gift that we have to be alive and to be living the lives that we're living, and to be able to impact other people and do nice things for other people. And so enjoy every single day and give a lot of gratitude and start 2024 off in the right way.
Well said, my friend. Have a very Merry Christmas.